Ladies and gentlemen, when I launched the Authentic Tales division of the Movie Tales umbrella, it was because I wanted to talk about movies that I don't think I would normally talk about, documentaries. And we've done one already, and when I decided to launch that brand, I was like, there's one movie in particular I know I want to talk about. Well, there's actually two. The other one is Bowling for Columbine. I do want to talk about that one at some point, but the reason I wanted to make Authentic Tales was so I could sit down and have an excuse to rewatch An Inconvenient Truth. This is the documentary from 2006, the first one. There is like a sequel that came out a decade removed from this one. Maybe we'll talk about that eventually. But this is from 2006. It is a documentary about Al Gore. And Al Gore, you might not know because you're probably under 30. He used to be a big deal, kind of. He was almost president. They say he was almost president, but it was like too close to call. Every sitcom you've ever heard of from like that era, from like late 90s to the mid 2000s, they have done a joke about Al Gore because when he stopped being a candidate for the president, he went on like a tirade about like global warming and the effects of it all. And he made this. Somebody said, let's talk about Al Gore some more. And that's how we have this. So it's An Inconvenient Truth. This is a documentary that's two parts. There's two parts to this documentary. The primary part is Al Gore standing on a stage talking to people about the climate crisis, global warming, and the effects that the government, specifically the American government, is doing not to help that or benefit it in any way, right? That's the main thing. The other part is like interspersingly Al Gore talking about his life. It's either him talking about almost being president, how George Bush fucked him over, or it's about, I grew up on a farm, and me and my daddy learned this thing about cows and all the emissions we release doing our thing. And I'm like, okay, man, yeah. This is a very interesting documentary to talk about. I don't know how we're going to gauge this, because there's just so much to it. First off, you have to know Al Gore as a guy. I know a lot of people are aware of him as like a cultural character, like, oh, you make fun of like the environment guy. Yeah, you do. You know, The Simpsons and Futurama made fun of him. South Park did a whole thing about him. Everybody's made fun of him. And it makes sense. He's an easy target because he has a very specific drawl to his voice. He is a very specific looking guy. You know, I think it's very interesting to go from being like almost in the top position of the American government to changing your entire stance and becoming this advocate for this thing. I think he went into that gracefully enough. Maybe not perfectly, because a lot of this movie is also just George Bush is an asshole. I mean, we know this comes out in a very particular time in American politics. We are 5 years removed from 9/11. George Bush is still in office. The Iraq War is still happening. We're still a ways away from Obama. You know, like, it's a very tumultuous time. And it's also a time we're not thinking about this shit. Like, I think today we definitely think about the climate crisis more. Maybe because from this documentary, we're like 20 years removed from it, essentially. So people have grown up watching it. There are generations that grew up watching this thing. I remember at some point in my school run, I've seen this. I have seen An Inconvenient Truth. I couldn't tell you when or at what stage of my life that was, but I remember watching this. And as a young kid, I didn't think much of it. The way he was talking, he made it sound like it was going to be generations removed from mine that are going to have to deal with this stuff. But then I realized something watching it this time, and I knew this before, but it really clicked in watching it as a guy in his mid-20s who is going to live to see 2050, 2060, 2070, hopefully, right? We have a warm Earth, don't we? It is definitely getting warmer, and that's crazy. And another reason I wanted to talk about this movie was because where I live in the world, I live, I guess, would you say like the Midwest of Canada? It's been crazy hot. It has been very hot this past couple of weeks. It is not looking to cool down, and it's just really put me in a bad mood. So I'm like, why is this happening? Oh yeah, because the Earth's warming up and nothing good ever happens. And I just wanted to see someone talk about it, you know, like just have a good feeling where someone's like, this is an issue. It's weird that it's this hot again. For my normal job, I do a lot of snow removal because I live in a part of the world where there's snow removal. And I'm thinking, temperatures keep up the way that they have been, trending for the past few decades. How much more of that is going to be happening? Should we anticipate seeing warmer winters more and more frequently? I think we will. It is possible we're going to see the decline of a lot of coldness. And I don't know. How do you want to get into this? Should we just talk about global warming? One of the stances that this movie makes is that a lot of the people who represent the world, like the automotive industry or certain people in the government, want to view global warming as just like a theory. And that's one of the things Gore talks about in this. Now, we have been alive long enough to know that global warming is not a theory, but there are still certain people in this world, I know some personally, who think, well, this is just stupid. There's no climate change or global warming. It's all dumb. The world just goes through these fluctuations every time. And you're like, yeah, it does. The problem is when it does that fluctuation, it's still getting hotter. Like, it could be this hot a century ago, but the way we're getting there is different, and it's destroying the world in a faster capacity. I do think, and look, you come to this channel, you're going to hear my opinions on some stuff. I think global warming is real. I think climate change is real. I don't think that's like a hot conspiracy that I shouldn't say aloud. I think it's real. And I think the world has definitely seen a lot of climate change. I think it's definitely gotten hotter. And I think we're releasing a lot more emissions into the atmosphere that are getting trapped in Earth. And they are just making temperatures hotter. And the ice caps are melting. Things are happening that are bad. This movie depicts an animation of a polar bear and it's drowning. And if that is not enough of a warning cry that something's happening, I don't know what is. A little bear like that drowning? Yeah, something's going on. You don't show that unless you're certain, because it's really tragic and sad. And I don't know. I don't have the answers. I don't know how to fix it. People smarter than me don't know how to fix it. We're getting better, I think especially in today's climate, we're seeing people actively want to change that. Like Greta Thunberg, she's been like, this is fucked, so people are trying. But as far as the movie goes, it's Al Gore standing in a room, a big screen, and he's like, okay, here are some pictures we're just showing you of glaciers and shit on Earth. This is them 70 years ago. This is them today. This is them 50 years ago. This is them today. Let me show you the average temperature of the Earth and how it increases and how it's just only increasing and how the emissions we put in just keep going up and all the carbon commissions. Is that what's being trapped there? Carbon dioxide. I think that's what it is. It's getting trapped in Earth, They use the animation from Futurama where it's the little girl asking, why is the world so warm? And their solutions to drop a big ice cube into the ocean. Well, that's it. Carbon dioxide just trapping things and the sunlight's coming back down and burning the Earth and we're losing ice caps and everything bad is happening. It's bad. And you know what? People like to think short term, but long term, if we keep up the way it's been going or had been going for a while, because I do think we are seeing some change, would have been bad. I think we would have seen a lot of worse stuff happening. I'm thinking about my future when I'm in my 60s. How is this world going to look? And that's kind of what Al Gore is talking about. He's just this is something we have to look out for. It's not going to change in my lifetime. I'm just seeing the causes here. I'm seeing the way, people in Japan, the automotive industry in Japan, they have a commission rate that's down, and in America it's going up. That kind of a stuff. Let me show you some statistics about each ice age and how it's getting worse and everything. You're right, Al, this is happening. And it's kind of crazy and it's not good for us. But also George Bush, it's okay. And maybe that's also why people didn't take to this right away, or a certain type of person to take to this, because the movie does depict the personal stuff where it's I was almost president. And you're okay, man. Do we need to talk about that right now? Do you want to talk about that right now? We don't have to have this conversation, but it clearly sounds like you want to. So that might be off-putting and annoying to a lot of people. I also think some people just don't want to sit down and have somebody they don't tell them facts. We were talking about this recently, just about how science is kind of being treated these days, and everyone's like, do your own research, make your own opinion, and nobody like wants to believe anything anymore. I was having this argument off screen with people in my life, with my family. I'm just like, science is fact. It's real, and it's not based on belief. And the argument that I'm not going to name who they were was making was like, well, you get there because you believe this, so then you test it. I'm like, yeah, that's called theory. That's what science is trying to prove. They do tests, they run theorems, and that's how we get the fact. That's the fact. And it's a fact that the world's heating up. You know, we can't just drop a big ice cube in it. And Al Gore, love him or hate him, he wants to spend his time talking about that stuff. I think that's interesting. I think it's important to mention. And there's a lot of good facts in here. I don't think I'm going to list all the facts off for you, but there's some good emphasis on everything going on, just showing you like how the world can change, how science is this thing that's undervalued and underappreciated, and some school systems even don't really want to like talk about that. So there you go. That's sad. Just that like this is a thing he's going to be fighting for and advocating for. Not everyone's going to appreciate that. It is interesting. If you are willing to go on this journey, and I know some people aren't, so I'm not going to force you. Just like the way it's talking about the terms of like things are going to get worse before they get better kind of vibe. It's very interesting. And humanity has a big part to play with that. The way we create stuff and like exude emissions into the air, it's different than what it used to be. And because of that, we are causing more problems. Why are we talking about this? What a stupid movie to talk about. But that's the inconvenient truth. It's just that, you know, we could live in a time when bad things keep happening. Now, I love the environment. I just like looking at stuff. So every time there's a big image of like a glacier or like Greenland, is like, this is melting and that's not normal. I'm like, you're right. That's not normal. And it's scary to see that. Thanks for showing me that. It's terrifying to think about. In the near future, like a reality that a lot of us are going to be living in, we could see some bad stuff happening to our climate. You know, is it only going to get hotter? Are we going to find a solution? Are there going to be people in positions of power willing to find us a solution? That's the question. And that's the question Al Gore is asking. And some people, especially in 2006, didn't want to have that conversation. But hey, we're having it. Let's have it some more. Should we come back and talk about the Inconvenient sequel? Maybe next year or something. You know, let's just see how this goes. It's hot outside. I'm mad about it. I'm going to live with it. And you're going to live with the fact that we just spent 14 or so minutes talking about an inconvenient truth. And the inconvenient truth of the matter is you watch this. Sorry. But it's hot out there. Stay safe, kids. You know, that's going to do it for this episode of Authentic Tales. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And of course, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.